So let's start with giving examples of specific situations in which AI is being deployed today for energy. So whatever you're working on, if you can give a little bit more detail of the project, it doesn't have to be at length, but so that we get, in the implications in terms of either the amount of hours or resources that it uses. So how does it help, essentially? So who wants to take it? I don't mind where we start. Most of you are going to speak. So Sonia, you go.
I can go first. So I work within the renewables business of our company, and what we do is in forecasting. So forecasting, when you're producing wind, we do a lot of offshore wind. It's really important because you need to understand what the weather will be like, so that you can actually put into the grid when will you be producing your electrons. So what we used is typically different algorithms and all techniques like neural software and how to mine that data. But what we're doing is that we're comparing our predictions with actual data. So how was really the weather? What happened that day? And that gives us opportunities for the model to learn. So it's a learning model, and by doing that we have reduced errors very much, so more than 10% more than what is the standard. So these are the ways where we see that we can actually much more easily remove what would have been impossible before, because you couldn't mine that volume of data. So this is one of the things where we see that now this is not just being used by our plant to predict how they will sell the electricity, but even from our trading department, because they can better understand the other parts of this value chain now.
Yeah, so it started out as the technology was, but it learned over time. This is the difference that you have with your project.
Yeah.
Okay, essentially. Great. Anyone else? Abdul? Yes, of course, it makes sense.
We are still in early stage in this, but currently we're using it in the predictive maintenance approach, mainly machine learning. And because we have a huge number of compressors and production platforms, and this has helped us optimize. So we are looking at models and looking at machine learning to make sure that we reduce the downtime and predict future failure, which help us plan better. The other aspect of that is the integrated planning, where we're looking at adding the market values, prediction from the market into the planning module. That's a new thing. The planning modules have been running for years now in other oil and gas company, but linking it to demand is a new thing, and we're using AI mainly to do this currently.
Excellent, thank you very much. I'm sure Innogy has something to say.
Yes, a couple of things. Let me just focus on three. So for once, we're using behavioral science and machine learning to enhance customer interaction and to target specific demand-side management activities to help people to understand the energy consumption better, and then proactively give tips towards customers on what is it they can do to further save energy. The second thing we're doing is on rooftop PV initiatives. We are using artificial intelligence for predictive maintenance. And I think that's where AI then really becomes powerful, if AI is combined with other technologies like blockchain. We're working on prototypes for self-owning PV panels. So once you have the amazing concept of cryptocurrency and blockchain combined with artificial intelligence, you can actually create assets that are managing themselves.
Okay, does anyone want to make emphasis on maybe a project that you may not be running but know of that is different to the ones that we've heard from here?
Yeah, so I can comment on, beyond these large, the big categories of predictive maintenance and better control, forecasting, there was a specific project where we basically had a complicated signal coming from very different sensors. And that signal was a fingerprint for what the consumption was at a specific site. So each site had its own sensor. And by applying machine learning, we were able to disaggregate what that signal was into individual uses. So this was a nice example of being able to apply machine learning to more accurately predict what the fingerprint was.
Sonia.
And if I can add one other example, and it would be linked to imagery. And that is that what we were seeing was that we get satellite images of all our plants. Those are actually available for everyone. is open data. So what we saw is that those satellite images would actually tell us how the wind parks were pointing at any point in time. And we could see from the shadow and mining that data that actually one or two of these turbines was not pointing exactly in the right position. And by just a couple of degrees of movement, it actually reduces the energy production quite dramatically. And the alternative of doing it this way, which was really a bit of an innovation that was done internally by luck, but the alternative would be to use LiDARs, where you would actually install them on all the turbines, which would be very expensive. So it was a way of actually using the artificial intelligence to really simplify, and also adopt open data.
You know, this is something, it's perfect that you just said this, because one of the things that I did with my last panel is I asked them, and they weren't expecting it, we didn't discuss it, but I'm going to do the same to you, sorry about that, and it's whether you can tell me a actually monetary value on an savings or extra money that was made by implementing artificial intelligence in a specific project, so that we can actually put this into dollar terms that we all understand over here. You know, I don't know whether you guys can pull out any particular project. Abdul, you're looking like you have something to tell me right now. You really do, doesn't he?
That's very difficult to put currently, value, because it's a very dynamic situation.
No, absolutely.
So value, definitely, if you look at the value in terms of maintenance optimization, there is a 5 to 10% reduction in downtime. That can be translated, depending on production, to million or billions, depending on what you're producing, depending on which field.
Is really large. That's
yes,
the thing.
that figure can be very large or very small, depending on the field and the plant that you're working with. But in general, the concept is to optimize, and machine learning and AI does help us optimize.
So what I'm reading here is that just using AI in the last years, you've saved from millions to billions.
No, I said it can reach that much, but it's in terms of percentage, in terms of downtime improvement, and these are percentage. And then it depends on the location. That money can be translated into 1,000 million, whatever you want.
Excellent. Sonia?
I think, the difference is that, this is it's an evolution. It's not necessarily a revolution, because one of the reasons why AI has been around for a very long time, but you haven't had the compute power in order to really make it happen. So it's been something we've been working on algorithms for decades in oil and gas. We're using seismic data, which has always been petabytes of data, to try to find where is these reservoirs. So, but the difference now is the fact that you can do it in so many other contexts without having to invest so much. So it's actually a lower threshold to adopt it, and there's more available that you can take from off-the-shelf solutions and utilize them internally in the company. So it's it's definitely giving us opportunities we didn't have, and it's hard to put a price tag on that, but it definitely is something where we can write down the benefits. But there is also something about, because when we've been writing algorithms before, you kind of had to have a physicist who would, define how the world looked like, and then you would transform that into code. Mm-hmm. Now with the learning opportunities that AI gives you, you can actually allow the machine to tell you what the algorithm should look like, instead of us as humans trying to predict.
Yeah.
So there's so much from that is just not possible, or was not possible to do before. So that's where I would put the value.
I don't know, would you wanted to say anything? You look like you're like, yeah.
Just wanted to add on that. Oh, it's weird hearing myself in these. I'll take this off. Just wanted to add on that. I think it was an interesting point that Sonia made there, but it is hard to put a price tag on this. And I think the big question is, how can we put a price tag on sustainability? And, this is how AI is going to help here. And I think there was a study done by the World Economic Forum that showed that the digitalization of energy systems globally could unlock a value figure of about $1.3 trillion US. So, the potential is huge.
Yeah, we've all read the articles about human beings not having to work anymore, So we're looking forward to that. So just a quick show of hands, please. Who here has had any type of artificial intelligence implementation in the room? Can you put your hands up in your company? We're not talking about anything off the shelf like Google or, any artificial intelligence implementation in any of your companies? 0, 1, okay. How many people would like to go in this direction? Can you put your hands up? Okay, excellent. So now we need to sell it, guys. It's really simple. So these guys over here, there are a lot of people here who want to buy it. Just one person who's done it before. So let's start with from these people that have never done it before, what's the first step? How do we start? So why don't you start with the convincing as a consultant you are, and then we'll go around.
One of the first steps is identifying and prioritizing the problems that are currently occurring in some situation. Like with us, we're dealing with wind farms and solar plants mostly. And then you review all the data that you're collecting, what data is available, and you start to apply. You basically build a structure for applying a framework to that data to solve it, and then doing so within an algorithm that learns from that analysis. So I think the first step is identifying the question that you want to answer. Second step, what data do you have available? How far are you willing to go to get more data?
So the first step is understanding what is your objective, much like anything else in life, I suppose, and then seeing how you get to that objective. Does this have to be just a question in terms of the amount of what can you gather from your information?
Typically what we find is there's some problem that they want to solve, and it's, for instance, the maintenance downtime for one, or the decreases in production from solar plants. And so it's very easy then to apply a solution to that and measure the progress that you make. And the thing that we've been going through lately is being able to do that with different facilities and then compare the different solutions that we apply, and at times having more success with machine learning, not always having more success. So it's been a bumpy road the past few years. That it's getting smoother.
Okay. Anyone else wants to add anything?
I mean, we always ask the question, like, where in your organization do you have a process or a task where you would wish to have a superhuman brain that never gets tired doing it? And then automatically you start thinking about a couple of things that you would actually like to enhance. So I think that's a great way to go for it. Just to give you one example, one process that we basically AI'd in one of the energy companies over here is a connection process that required customers to upload an image, and it took 7 days beforehand. So with the help of AI, we were able actually to reduce that process from 7 days to less than 1 day, because with AI you can analyze the image and then process everything automatically. So these are, like, I think, examples that you need to look for. Don't go for like a big AI revolution, because you need to start in small steps.
Ian, you've been really quiet, and you're the futurist, so you must tell us, what's the first step for the future?
I think before I even talk about that, I think we need to demystify artificial intelligence to a huge extent. So artificial intelligence, as in the context of the question that we're asking, is that in order for the audience to say, okay, we're going to go and do AI in our company, that's a great initiative to do, but it's complex within AI. It's a broad term that categorizes many different things that you can do with technology. Today, analytics is also confused with AI. So if you're doing predictive analytics, let's not confuse that with AI. So we have to differentiate what true AI is, and whether it's even suitable for the people who are here in the audience for their application, because there's a cost to it, and probably we'll talk about that later on. And it's not as simple as just, plugging AI and off you go, minting whatever you want to do. So I think we need to simplify the idea of AI. A majority of artificial intelligence right now is simple artificial intelligence. It's not complex, it's not deep, it's not thinking on its own, it's not creating results and learning on its own, but it's very linear, it's algorithm based. And so a majority, 99% of AI that we see today is just the artificial simple intelligence that we see. We are not at the advanced stages, and we can probably talk about that in the next questions.
Sonia?
Yeah, I just want to say that, the thing is that we might not have to go all the way if we can actually get a lot of benefit from what's already there. So I think, to the question how to start, instead of waiting for the perfect future where things will be, automated full, what can you do to start with what you have? And I think, the first question is, do you have data? Because unless you have sensors that, get data or other ways of actually accessing data. Without that, you can't do anything, not even the simple algorithms or the analytics. So I think it's understanding, how you develop your own data model. What are the important data for you? Where are your jewels? What is it that's important to keep internally, and what is it that you would like to actually access from somewhere else and utilize and not have to gather yourself? So I think that's a very important starting point. But then again, you need to look into what is it that you're trying to solve for. And I think it's important, as was said here, that you don't start with the biggest, I'm going to save the world questions, but how do you actually start with the smaller steps and then build them into something that is bigger? Because you have to learn to crawl before you can start walking.
So it's the pockets of value. You called it like this when we prepared the sessions, and I really like this expression. It's finding those pockets of value. But what if, and this has happened to me before, one of my clients said to me, oh yeah, I love this big data thing. I think it's the future. I have no idea where to start. How do I make this data useful? What if I have a lot of data and I don't know? I think maybe there may be ways in which it could help me, but I don't know what to do. What do I look at? Any advice?
Ask for help.
I think with that, partnerships will become absolutely key. And with that, expert systems, like I mentioned at Globality, now using forms of AI like natural language processing, we're able to extract intent. So someone can come with a program of change that they want to implement, or they've just got a challenge and they just don't know how to start. AI now can help you find that solution. By using knowledge representation systems, we can codify vast amounts of knowledge, human-curated expertise on a given topic, and also knowledge points on a curated set of vetted service providers and solutions out there that you can be matched to.
It's incredible, actually. The value of data, I don't think we realize what it is. I was reading this news piece that Roomba, the company that does vacuum cleaners, essentially, one day they realized that because they have this many vacuum cleaners, which are essentially robots, they have all of the blueprints of everybody's home. So they said, hey guys, we've got essentially the floor plans of everybody's homes, and their stock just shoot up. And the question is, what is this data good for? I honestly still haven't found the answer, but it was good for them because their stock did go up. So there is always pockets of value. Go on, Sonia.
So I think you said that there is an estimate that there is a lot of money to be saved within the energy business, and a lot of it is because there are wastes in what we do.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the data comes in, is actually finding what is it that could be optimized in a smarter way to reduce the amount of waste. And it plays to the sustainability, of course, as well, because it's good economics for a business to remove what's not necessary. But in order to do that, you really need to understand how you can optimize it. So what would you use that data for? Is it a new business model, or is it improving the one you have already? But you have to kind of mind those questions. I think one of the biggest changes that happens with renewables and distributed energy, this is the closeness you have, not just for creating energy, but for consuming energy, and how that kind of changes things. And one example I thought was quite interesting was that when you had the solar eclipse that happened in the US last summer, there was a lot of expectation that because, for example, California has a lot of their energy coming from solar, that you would have a dip in the supply of energy in that period. So what happened was that a lot of the companies that were providing energy for people's homes had to go and buy expensive energy so that they would be able to have that just in case if something would happen. But what happened up front was there was a lot of social media activity saying, why don't we do like an Earth hour? So when the solar eclipse was, people should turn down their air condition, they should turn down everything, they should go out and watch the solar eclipse instead. And there were 6 gigawatts of energy that was suddenly taken out of the demand.
Wow.
So what happened was all these energies that have been bought upfront, capacity wasn't necessary anymore. So understanding the supply demand is where we actually can reduce a lot of waste.
So you get me there to a really interesting point, which is the human side of this, right? Because I read about Elon Musk. I love the stuff, he's a futurist. He sees an idea, okay, we're going to have electric cars, and goes for it, electric trucking. But with AI, it's like, oh, not really. I don't think this is a good idea. So this sinister, side of AI did come out, and a lot of people, I think, are scared, and they're scared on the basic level of I'm going to lose my job, and then the most, I don't know, the other level of, they're going to take over. So I guess my question, this is to all of you, and you can take it from there. The people who have been more quiet is, how do we put human into AI in a way that it becomes less sinister, it becomes less scary, if you like? And we know, it's this big idea, that's part of the problem, right? But what are the steps on that? Ian, maybe you want to take that?
My pleasure, yes. I think it's a great question. Everybody is afraid of AI because the idea is that AI is sinister, it will take over our lives, robotics together with AI will just, make us into slaves and so on. I think these futuristic ideas are very, very scary, and I'm scared about them too. But I think we have to take it one step at a time. I don't think that right now, in time, right now, we are at that position at all where we can have that futuristic scenario that you see in the movies right now. We're still, again, as I mentioned before, at the first level of AI, where we're still trying to get AI to not, Google just made the breakthrough where they were able to get AI to learn something on its own. So that's a big breakthrough. So we're generally not at the stage where AI can make decision on its own or start learning on its own and come up with all different scenarios and iterations and take over the world. That's still far, far, far down the line. Having said that, yes, it is a possibility. And for that, there's many different ideas that we need to have a protective AI embedded in us that protects the human side of us from the technology side. And Elon Musk said that again. So he's advocating both things. I think we need to address and understand AI, first of all, as it is right now. How can we use it to create value in the world, to capture value in the energy industry, not just from a predictive level, but how can we, look at future cities and use AI to optimize, garbage collection routes, or like they do in Barcelona as an example, or how can we predict energy demand across different grids? I think we should capture that market first, that idea first, and then look at the sinister scenarios, and that's my opinion.
Okay, Abdul.
I look at it, and I would like to go back to also the previous question in terms of what's important. I think data and the quality of data is a very important aspect of what we're facing with AI or with analytics. And we face this problem with the quality of data. So any venture into AI or analytics, the quality of data is paramount. It's important. Otherwise, garbage in, garbage out. You really can hurt yourself with the quality of data. The second part, it's an integrated platform. I look at AI or analytics, and I agree with Ian here that we are actually analytics, what we're doing, predictive analytics, AI in itself, as the Terminator AI or 2000 Space Odyssey AI is not there. And it might be a very long time, maybe not in our lifetime, I don't know. But we're looking at analytics and integrating suppliers and customers and different industry together for the complete value chain. And here I look for us, and with the solar eclipse in the US as an example, you had the gas companies that use gas to produce energy, coal, crude, others that use solar, wind. Now all of these are not really integrated. The use of analytics and an integrated platform can forecast demand, look at demands, look at patterns in demand, and divert production to wherever it is more economical, let's say, more optimized production. This definitely touches on waste reduction. We create a lot of waste in our industry, not only in the oil and gas, but in most industries. And reducing waste, doing analytics and analyzing it will help us reduce waste. And that's a huge saving. An example of that in oil and gas, flaring. If we reduce flaring by doing better predictive and this, we can save billions of standard cubic foot per day, which is gas that we don't need to produce. We just save it. It's already there produced, rather than burn it, use it for something else. And that alone can save us a huge amount of money and impact the environment and create a sustainable society, hopefully.
Yeah, there is a thin line. We're doing something that is smart and AI, right? Like, it sounds more adaptative, so it's adapting. It's just, a small but a great differentiation, I'm guessing. Is there any questions in the audience? I just want to get a show of hands in case. Okay, excellent. If there is any questions, just put your hand up and make yourself. No. Sorry. Make yourself known to me so that I can come to you guys. I've got the microphone right here, but I've got plenty of questions, so no issues. Anyone else wants to take these? You do. Okay.
I think it's important to address the fact that if we look historically, the past 2 centuries, technology has produced more jobs than it has destroyed them. And I think it's inevitable that the question will be asked again, will AI destroy more jobs than it will create them? I think that is a big question that we've got. But I do think that it's really a concept of workforce distribution. There will be jobs created in the near future that we cannot predict. And there will be jobs destroyed as well. And if we look at jobs today, things like social media managers, this didn't exist. Uber drivers, that didn't exist a decade ago. So yeah, I think we need to look at this positively.
Always in the future, right?
Yeah, I think looking at AI from a very holistic point of view, I think in order to answer your question in terms of what can we do to prevent the Terminator scenario, I think first thing is, from my point of view, AI as a general concept should not be there primarily to gain new profits for corporations, but it should be there to improve society and well-being. I think that's one clear.
That is lovely.
Yes.
It's coming from Innogy. How big are you?
40,000 people.
Lovely.
Second point, and that's the way how we go for it, we use the guideline co-pilot. So when we use AI, we use it in a co-pilot way. So we ensure that there's still a human pilot having the last say in what's going on.
Okay, so there's a mixed approach until we're ready to...
So exactly. So we're using AI predominantly to help people to achieve their job more efficient. Right. And then you will reach a stage where you can easily then judge, okay, is it safe to let the AI do the job alone? Or do we still want to have the final control over it?
I just wanted to add on, Katarina, you mentioned technology has created many more jobs in the past and so on. And to add to your comment as well, is that there's no doubt, and this might sound a bit harsh, there's no doubt that because of technology, many of our jobs are going to get reconfigured, okay? Many tasks that we perform in our jobs today will not be performed by us anymore as human beings, but technology will take them over. So the example could be that maybe 50 years ago, when there was a production plant that produced, let's say, shirts, there was manual labor working on it, and they were just making those shirts. But now many of those processes are automated, whether it's the Coca-Cola bottling plant, any industry. So this is a natural iteration that jobs will change direction. And I believe human beings are meant to do better things, more intellectual things, look after the happiness index and look after the well-being of each other and do intellectual tasks so we can automate everything through artificial intelligence. We shouldn't be afraid of that aspect of it.
No, it makes complete sense. The problem is then we're all human and politics gets in the way, so it's a complicated issue. And on that line, and I will start with you, Belén, because you've been really quiet lately.
I have a whole list of comments over here.
Oh, excellent. I was going to ask something specific, but before I do you want to make some remarks about your topics?
I think that a lot has, I don't want to reiterate what everyone's been saying, but
I'm going to do it anyway.
A big point here. So one is that another application we have for AI or machine learning, as we were calling it initially, is cleaning data. So this garbage in, garbage out, one of the biggest values we've had is actually identifying the garbage. And then I think that when it comes to the fears of society over AI, so on the job loss, I think it defaults to education and training and keeping people, keeping a skilled workforce that's adaptable. I think that the main sci-fi fear from Elon Musk and others comes down to the letting go of control. So you give control to the AI to drive your car or to make other decisions. And when it comes to assuaging those concerns, in the end, I think there has to be some sort of separation, some physical switch that allows you to disconnect the AI. But that's to be determined over years and years of experience.
I suppose you all know about this AI that Google created, and then they invented their own language, so they went and they switched it off quickly. in that sense, like it really goes out of your hands.
And that's to Innogy's point at the beginning. Like at the beginning, AI is there to help the human. So the human's involved in reviewing and seeing the results. Then the human can decide to give up the control. But the human should still be there in a position to take that back.
I can understand in terms of implementation, it makes sense. What I think is in terms of actually getting people used to that, it's very interesting. You know, when the lifts used to operate, they have to be operated by a lift operator, and they will go with you in the lift up and down. And when the lifts became automatic, which now we consider completely normal, there was like a lot of people who enter like panic attacks. There was like 20 years in which people would pull the lever, you know, to stop because they were worried because there was no operator, and they kind of they studied this in Google very much so when they started making automatic cars, because self-driven cars, because they were saying if you can override it, the human will always override it. This is our human nature, and they decided that the only way to really implement self-driven vehicles was not to put an override button, because the minute you have an override button, humans panic. They're reading the newspaper, they see, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, we're not stopping. They override and then they crash. So there is the AI there is like a little bit of a situation where with the human comes in, there is a psychology issue.
A human would still have an override button for that self-driving car though. Just not the passenger.
You don't in the left, for example, these days, and we're comfortable with that. You see? This is where, you know, but it took more than 40 years for people to get comfortable and ride on their own. Anyway, this is just a human thing. So we only have 5 minutes or a little bit more. I wanted to ask a question about regulation and cybersecurity, which you knew was coming because, you know, this is when we're getting. So we're going to have two questions: this regulation, cybersecurity, and since there are no questions in the room, we're going to have a question about the future, where I'm going to ask you about, make predictions about how, you know, AI is going to evolve. But the first, security, cybersecurity, and regulation. Who cares to comment on this? Because it's not going to be an easy one. It's going to take us years. Sonia. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think, you know, I used to be the CIO of Statoil, so my experience is digital. And I think, you know, the threat of cyber attacks is very much there whatever we do. Mm-hmm. Because as long as we digitalize, as long as there is data and we want it because it makes us smarter and it helps us, there will always be a way of misuse and actually using it against you. So I think it's important that every organization has the skills necessary to make sure that we are building these systems resilient and that we are relying on designs that are possible to obtain. And here again, governments are very important because it's not something a company on its own can protect in some circumstances. So I think it's all about making sure that we have the transparency necessary. But cyber is just as important in today's world as it would be in a future AI world. But I think that's where I am. With regulations, I think it's important that regulation follows technology so that it adapts, but it doesn't necessarily kind of, you need to see somehow that it works together. Because if like you said, if the regulator would say that you are not allowed to have an automatic elevator, of course, you know, that would slow the opportunity down. But at the same time, you also need to make sure that it's a step out in the new future that is something we understand fully. So although we don't have control in that sense, we understand how the lifts work and what can go wrong in all these various phases. So for me, it's about knowledge, it's about design. So it's not by making things happen by chance. And I think you need to have those understanding of what this artificial intelligence will do, and letting go of everything is going to be not necessarily an easy thing. I think you will have pockets of AI. You know, at our home we have the Alexa, which is a loudspeaker, and I think it's really fun, you know, because I keep, calling out things. It doesn't understand Norwegian.
Doesn't understand my accent.
So, well, wherever, but I'll try to do my best in English. But so I think there's, there are pockets of things that like voice recognition. There's areas where, self-learning algorithms and help. So we shouldn't talk it down, but it's not, well, I don't think it's important for looking at the very end state either. Because that might, as you say, scare us more than it actually gives us the opportunities.
Okay, regulation.
I have a quick comment on both of these, the regulation as well as cybersecurity. My true belief is that we will never reach a point where we are truly secure until in AI we reach a point called artificial general intelligence. We're not there yet. And artificial general intelligence is the era where AI can learn, it can detect cybercrime or threats or hacking events, and it can learn how to plug itself, right? So we're not teaching cybersecurity systems anything, they are learning on their own. And that's when I believe that technology will overtake the bad guys who are trying to penetrate your systems, who are trying to invade your systems. So that's one thing. So we're not there yet. We're still going to be playing catch ball until that happens, and it's still far away. Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two on regulations and policy, I believe that if we are thinking about a time period 20 years from now that, hey, everything will be automated and 60 or 90% of cars on the roads will be automated and there will be driverless cars, I think we need to start talking about the regulations right now, because if we start thinking about them 20 years from now, it's far too late. The challenge is that in order for us, automated cars will hit across the world, and we need to form this global let's say, task force or consortium or group that starts working on regulations, policies right now. And that's what I think we should really focus on.
So you're saying AI is the solution to cybersecurity? Awesome.
Yes.
So transparency and standardization of the regulations, like ideally globally, and like a layered approach to the data too. So there's a layered defense, and then definitely active monitoring and active defense to protect the data.
Okay, and then the last question, I suppose, maybe for you guys that didn't speak so much in this area. So what's the future? What do you see as, like, from Innogy, for example, perspective? What do you hope AI would do for you in 5 years, 10 years?
With the use of, I think we're going to have an amazing future with the use of AI. In particular, as I mentioned in the beginning, in close working together with blockchain and in other like decentral technologies, I think we were going to have a revolution in the Internet of Things that are that will free up time of human beings, that will make time more efficient. I just hope that as human beings we will use the free time that we have then in an efficient way.
I definitely have a lot of ideas what to do with more free time. Katarina?
I think for me, it's interesting what Ian said. I think right now we're in the phase, what I like to call intelligence augmentation, or IA. And I think it's about using AI to support and scale and the human expertise that we have and the pockets that exist all around the world that can help be used to solve the problems that we have today. So I think it's an incredibly exciting time, and AI has tremendous value. Thanks.
So hopefully IA will turn into AI over time. Any last comments before we go from you guys? No?
Quick 10-second comment. I really support artificial intelligence. I think it will change not just different industries, but it'll change the way we work. And somebody mentioned earlier, it'll change something about good. But I think there's far too many problems in the world that we have to actively deal with, from the refugee crisis to the global food crisis to political crisis. There's many bigger issues. And I think I'm hoping that AI will help augment some of them, solve some of them, and help us figure out the answers to the problems that we are unable to solve as of right now, which are amounting to a lot many. And that's my hope for the next 5 years, that we see AI building some solutions towards those issues.
Yeah, if we've got more time, right, then we can get it working. Go on.
I'm very optimistic about AI. I'm very optimistic about technology. I've seen our life change in the last 40 years because of technology, because of information, because of interacting together. And I'm very optimistic. And I believe that whatever regulations, whatever we put in place, whatever fears we have on cybersecurity or so on, this should not deter us. I think the future is very bright. We have amazing people, smart people that will develop things, and hopefully the Earth will make it a better place with technology.
I think we all agree with that, right, guys? Mm-hmm. The future is bright. AI is part of that, and I think I'm sorry, we're out of time now. I'm really sorry, but we're just going to come out now, so you feel free to ask them directly. So thank you very, very much. It's been intense because we had a lot of people in a very short amount of time, but please, big round of applause for our speakers here today. And feel free to catch them now as we leave, and ask all your questions. Thank you very much.